Hey, how you all going? It's Jai, that Aussie metal guy here with crank.com and with that metalstation.com. And today I'm getting to have a chat with guitarist, songwriter Jason Hodges, whose band Ilium is due to release their 12th release, I believe. Quantum Evolution Event EP comes out 14th of January. I've actually got to have a listen to this. It's a cracking album. I come across you guys, believe it or not, a couple of years ago, but you have been around for coming on 20 years next year. So it must be a bit of a buzz for you, man.
Yeah, well, someone will hear about us once, by the time we're dead, hopefully. So, yeah.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about coming up on 20 years. What's that mean for you as, to be able to go 20 years in this metal scene here in Australia?
Well, we kind of, we were in a band called Oracle before, which started in high school. So it was 1990. Wow. This band sort of started 98 and we released our first EP in 2002. So,
wow,
yeah, it's coming up to 20 years since the first release. We kind of do it for the love of it, I guess. Yep. We don't play live, so we were playing live in our old band. We don't play live with this because it was just easier to get the sort of to get the people that we want to sort of perform with on the CD. It's hard to sort of line up schedules and stuff, and at this point we're all kind of too busy to worry about it. But we figure we want to just get the music out there, and yeah, we're really happy, especially with the last couple of things we've done have really sounded pretty amazing. So
yeah, well, it was the I think it was the Carcinogeist Geist album that I come across. I had it sent over from Andy. Do a little bit of promo for the webzine as well, and I was like, where have I been? And it's like anything in the Australian music metal scene, you come across all these talented bands, and you guys have been around for fucking ages, and you just kind of pinch yourself going, where the hell have I been? And you wonder sometimes how bands like yourself do get missed by the media and in this rotation.
Yeah, I think particularly when we were sort of starting, there's a real stigma about Australian bands that if they're from Australia, they mustn't be any good. Obviously, that's not the case. There's a lot of great bands over here. And because we don't play live as well, we don't have that that exposure. We sort of, most of our market, I guess, is Europe or overseas. And I don't know. I don't know how much. You'd have to probably talk to other Australian bands to see how much local support that they get, but it's kind of hard. And I guess we kind of don't focus on it that much. But yep. Yeah, I mean, it's good that people are still, like, if we wanted to hear stuff that we're doing, we kind of want it to be the latest stuff, because it is at least in terms of the production, it's been it's much better. I mean, we got Lord Tim from Lord. Yeah, and he's singing and producing. He's worked with us right from the beginning. He produced our first EP and he did some backing vocals. The only thing he hasn't done with us was when we did My Misanthropia and the Wendigo EP a few years back, and that had Lance King from Balance of Power and Avian and those sort of bands on vocals. But Tim came back in with us when we decided we were going to completely reimagine our debut album, Sirens of the Styx. And yeah, it come up really well. We sort of had, he come in partway through. Lance was supposed to sing on it. He had all sorts of personal things that he was dealing with. I ended up just contacting Tim and said, do you want to sort of sing on it? And he goes, yeah, as long as I can produce it, sort of thing. So we did that, and it come up really amazing. So when we did Carcinogeist and the Enviro-Metal EP, he was in from the ground up. And yeah, I was pretty amazed by how well that turned out. And Quantum Evolution Event is the EP that we've just finished recording, is kind of in the same vein. We've re-recorded a few of our older songs on there as well, just to see sort of the difference. I mean, Under God's Tim actually originally sang on it. He was on our second and third albums. So that was good to hear that sort of redone, and to basically see the difference. The other two were Mike DiMeo from RIOT and MASTERPLAN was our singer originally on the Ageless Decay and Genetic Memory albums. And just how having obviously when we sort of first contacted Tim, he was in Dungeon, which was the precursor to Lord. And he was sort of getting into the self-recording, and things were kind of primitive back then, but we sort of watched how his production and his techniques and things evolved over time, and we evolved as well with our songwriting, and especially as a lyricist, I really enjoy working with Tim more than any other vocalist I've had. Our first vocalist, Mark, obviously was a close friend, so I enjoyed working with him. But even though we had some big names within Mike DiMeo and Lance King, there's only so much you can sort of do when they're in studios that are over in another continent. Tim knows us, he knows what we want, and he really delivers. So it's just been really great.
He's an amazing vocalist too, isn't he, Tim? Like, I've got both those.
He's world class.
Like the last two that they brought out, and a whole heap of the other stuff, and even the earlier Dungeon stuff. His vocals are just unreal. Another,
he seems to be getting better.
Yeah, he does, doesn't he? It's just amazing, dude. That Undercovers album was really, really bloody good. I give that a good spin on the show. And then the last album they brought out was just thumping. It was some of the best stuff they brought out.
Yeah, and I think Tim is really focused on the studio work lately as well. I mean, I think back in the day they were doing a lot of live stuff. They don't seem to be doing that much now. I'm not even sure what their situation is with live. Obviously, with COVID, nobody's really been doing it. A lot
of people.
But he's really been working with a lot of people and really honing his craft. And I personally think his ability as a producer now is world class, and that's not taking into consideration he's one of the best guitarists you'll ever hear. He's one of the best singers you'll ever hear. Even these other vocalists that I worked with who are big international names like Lance King, they're blown away by how good Tim is, and he knows exactly how to write for us as well, and he listens to me, and as a lyricist he really works well with me, and I think that's been a big difference.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about your songwriting process for this album, the Quantum Evolution event.
Well, that sort of goes back in time because three of them are re-recordings. So one of them goes back to our second album, Permian Dusk. In terms of the two originals, Tsitsi was one that Adam, our other guitarist, wrote the music to, and I wrote the lyrics. I tend to write on a few different levels. Sometimes people try and describe how we write. Some people say, I focus on the environment, all that sort of stuff, or I focus on the human condition or whatever. But I actually write a lot of varied sort of stuff. A lot of it's very influenced by real like mini like concepts, but not an entire album worth of concept within a song sort of thing, and I'll come up with original ideas. So it's I guess you'd parallel it with something like King Diamond in terms of music, but other than that, it's basically just I wrote a book years ago and I published it, and I kind of like doing that, but also I've got my own things that I'm interested in, like I guess the human condition, sociology, and I'm a wildlife rescuer as well, so I've got a really strong interest in the environment, so I'll put that sort of stuff in, but I'll often write it so that you can interpret things on different levels, because I think when you're listening to a song, you kind of want to make it your own as a fan. Yep. And I think if it means something different to everyone, then that's a great thing. So CT was it's almost like a kind of a horror supernatural type thing, but it's something that can be again interpreted on a lot of levels. And Quantum Evolution event, the main sort of riff on that I sort of came up with, and then I went over and worked with Adam and he came up with it. So again, I mean, working with Adam, he's just got this amazing sense of melody. He reminds me a lot of early Michael Schenker, but obviously we go in a heavier sort of direction than that. But yeah, there's a lot of real adherence to, I guess, what the old guys were doing. And I suppose where we come from, I mean, you could call us power metal. I guess we are, but I think we're a bit more than that. We're kind of more like the very early stuff like HELLOWEEN or Blind Guardian or Gamma Ray, and we sort of move in that direction. We've got a lot of progressive elements and and that sort of stuff as well. So it's just basically a mix of everything. And yeah, it's a lot of the early stuff. I'd write the vocals. No, sorry, write the lyrics first, and we'd write around that. But we kind of got a different approach to everything we do these days. So.
Yeah, so I know you mentioned Halloween. How good was that release as well, dude? That must have been like, what'd you think of that one, dude? That last one they brought out with the 3 vocalists in there. That was cool, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm a massive fan. I've been into him since the Keeper days. And I remember the first time I bought Home Keeper, the 7 Keys Part 2, and I listened to it, and I was only young then, but it was like, yeah, I'd never heard them before. I used to just go and buy records because I liked the album cover or the logo or whatever. And Halloween was much like that, great album covers, great logo. And I brought it home expecting some sort of extreme sort of sounding thing, I guess, because, I was getting to Anthrax and stuff like that at the time. And I got it home and listened to it, and I thought, this is exactly what I want to do. And it's like that moment when I first listened to Die Young by Black Sabbath, and I thought, I want to play guitar. It's so yeah. I mean, that. Well, I could probably show you how we're doing this.
There you go.
I'm a pretty big. That's part of the collection. I mean, there's about 7,000 albums.
Oh,
and
yeah.
So I consider myself more of a fan than anything, and I sort of take that approach with our music. I'm a fan of what we do. I'm a fan of what Adam does and what Tim does, and Tim Yatras, the drummer. And we sort of just want to do something that we want to listen to, and we kind of take that approach rather than what do other people like. So, yeah.
Yeah, you can't be doing it for this long if it wasn't a labor of love, like you mentioned before, because it does take a lot of work that people don't realize. To be around for 20 years plus making music.
And losing a lot of money, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
But, yeah, I mean, it's kind of hard to know where things stand these days because the whole scene has shifted so much. I mean, I'm not that. In a way, there's a lot of sort of good things and bad things. We decided to start Ilium right around the time the internet was taking off, and we could see these opportunities. So it was like, well, here's a chance for us to really focus on the studio rather than go out play live.
Yep.
Have band members change every 3 minutes and then have to start all over again, sort of thing. We wanted to focus on the studio side of things. And yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot of good things and bad things, but I think part of the thing that I like about, I don't really want to be a slave to the music. I want to, I don't want to feel compelled to write in a certain direction or try and please certain people who probably never going to be pleased anyway. I'd rather just sort of write what we're good at. But obviously the scene, the way it is, it's hard to know where you stand. There's so many different subgenres. It's like, how do you? We don't want to fit neatly into one particular subgenre. I love all of these subgenres of metal, except for a few of the sort of later ones that came out post 90. Like, I'm not into new metal or that sort of stuff. But I've seen so many great innovations, and yeah, we just try and incorporate those sort of things. I mean, the symphonic elements that came up later on, we incorporate those to a small degree. We don't go over the top with it. But we've constantly kept up with what's going on, and we just basically want to be adding to the great wealth of music that's out there.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit about the recording process. How did you guys get this together? We've mentioned that Lord Tim done all the production. Tell me what was it like doing the recording for this, and during like the last couple of years, it would have been a little bit. How you going, eh? Or
we kind of do it individually. Adam's got the setup in his house.
Okay.
So once we've got the songs written, he'll get all the basic sort of stuff down, and what we do is basically try and get everything recorded. I'll do a spoken word thing to give Tim an idea of roughly where the lyrics go, and then we'll work sort of back and forth together. Tim will come up with his vocal ideas, and generally they work pretty well. If he's got any ideas saying, I've got this vocal idea, but the lyrics don't quite fit into what I want to do, then he'll come back to me and I'll adjust things and we do it from there. And yeah, it's quite good. So basically we'll just lay down I guess what we do to start with, Adam will put down the drums, the guide drums, and then send it over to Tim Yatras, the drummer, and he'll record the drums. We'll come back and finish off the instrumentation, and then it all goes to Tim, and then he produces from there. So a lot of it's in post-production, and then he'll do the vocals and mixing and mastering and all that sort of stuff, and then we've got a finished product.
Yeah, it came out. It came out really good. I really enjoyed this EP, man. Another thing you were talking about, buying albums for the artwork. I've always noticed with your albums, for the Ilium albums, the artwork has always been really caught the eye, really appealing to the eye, and just some fucking dope artwork on it, especially with this one with the Quantum Evolution event.
Yeah, we've got artwork for every song that we've ever done, every original. So that's a lot of artwork. So we've got, how many albums have we got now? Seven albums. It's redone. It's redone album. Yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff. So there's a lot of artwork that looks pretty cool. I've got a lot of it on shirts as well. It looks pretty good.
Yeah, where's the best place people can get along and support you guys, like buy these albums? And because I know if I can go over and stream it digitally, but for me, I love buying albums, merch, and stuff like that. Even to get on Bandcamp and buy it digitally, you've still got it.
Yeah,
you can play it anywhere you like, but you've spent the bloody money on it as well.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, for a small band, unless you're a huge band, Spotify, the bands don't make money out of it. Basically, the bands will. It's kind of, yeah, and for us it's like it's not our source of income. I mean, it'd be nice to be able to break even. It would be good, but for us, I guess Spotify, the bands, a small band doesn't. You have to have like millions and millions of streams to get any sort of income. So most bands, small, probably even medium-sized bands, won't see anything from Spotify. Even the big bands don't really make much money off it. So if you really want to see a band continue, you've got to buy the albums, CDs, albums, whatever, or digital if you buy it that way, and buy the merch. With us, we've got a Bandcamp page. It's iliumaustralia.bandcamp.com, and yeah, the best way is to support the band directly if you can. At least if you've got a physical product, that you bought, that the bands hopefully will get something down the track, and the digital on Bandcamp will get the money for it as well, and it all just helps with production costs, because again, it's for me over the years, bands music has given me so much. It's kind of kept me going through the dark times, and I think there's a lot of people who feel that way. And to me, not to support musicians financially is kind of really wrong, especially considering how hard it is. Even a lot of the big bands from the 80s, a lot of them they've got no money. They've lost everything. So for a small band starting out, or a band that never really got the opportunity to have that platform where they can go and play live and be guaranteed income and that sort of stuff. The only way you can really support is to buy their music and buy their merchandise and that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, I was talking to a guy the other day in an interview, and he said buying an album is like equal to 5,000 streams on Spotify or some shit like that. He said it is extremely important to support these bands coming through. You love a band, go over and buy the bloody album. Even on Bandcamp, you buy it digitally, you've you $10-12, whatever, it's not much, and you can listen to that any bloody time you like, and you've supported the band as well doing it.
Yeah, that's right. Look, Spotify has its place. I mean, I don't use it personally, but you can discover bands that way. But I mean, you can discover bands on YouTube. You don't have to go to Spotify. I think a lot of people sort of use that as a way of validating, so they feel, because it's a legitimate platform, that they're doing the right thing. That's, yeah, and I'm not saying they're doing the wrong thing, but ultimately, if you really like a band, for them to keep going, you have to sort of make sure the band gets some financial compensation for all the money and time that they're spending. Yeah, there was a period of about 10 years where all of the classic bands were refusing to release albums because they just weren't selling. And I guess that some of those bands have sort of started releasing albums again, which is great, but it's just not a good situation for music. You basically want, for me, I think anyone, you want to have new music coming out, and you want that music to be of a certain quality, and to get quality, it still costs a lot of money to produce an album, even though it's a lot easier these days with technology. You still got to have the technology, you've got to have the equipment, you've got to spend the years learning how to play instruments and to produce, because if you have to produce yourself, you know, paying a producer, obviously, when it used to cost bands like $500,000 to do an album in cases. And it's just inconceivable these days. But I mean, even still, if you're a band with no money and it's costing you $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 to do an album,
you still got to pay rent and fucking buy guitars and do everything else as well. You know what I mean? On top of it all.
And that's the thing, you know. I mean, bands used to be able to have it as a job, so they could focus solely on that. Unfortunately, a lot of them focused on other things as well, like drugs or whatever. But they could focus on the music and hone that craft and really get a quality product that way. I mean, these days you kind of got to get money where you can, through working outside of music, and then line up schedules and try and practice somewhere in between, and find time to write songs and all that sort of stuff as well. So yeah, I mean, it's a matter of what you want. To me, as a music fan, I feel much better actually buying it. And I'm old school. I like the physical thing. Yeah, I used to collect vinyl, and then CDs come in, and I was forced to get CDs because they stopped making vinyl. Now they're
bringing vinyl back.
Now the big focus. Yeah.
It's good because us metalheads, we love that physical, and that's one thing I love about this scene and the people in this community, and the metal community and the rock and punk. And we're more likely to buy the merch than any of the other scenes.
Yeah, and you think about I remember going in back when you buy vinyl in the stores, you go in and you see this amazing artwork, and it's like being transported to another world. It's part of the music. And I think having that physical thing is it sort of brings you closer to the music. I mean, you think of what sort of things got me into the music besides the music itself. You'd look at those old Iron Maiden artworks or Megadeth or whatever, and it's just something magical about it. And I think that was something that's kind of got lost, particularly in the 90s when grunge came in. Metal bands, a lot of them would change or disappear altogether, and even their artwork for the CDs, they go in different sort of weird tangents, and everything was very bleak. And it's like, yeah, I kind of missed that for a long time. And it wasn't really till we started, we'd have to go and get catalogs and things from overseas, and then we start realizing, hey, these bands that we used to like, you know, Blind Guardian and Rage and Running Wild and Gamma Ray and whatever, they're still going, and they're still, you know, doing pretty well in Europe and releasing these great albums. And yeah, there's something about discovering music. It's a bit like a treasure hunt in a way, and that I kind of still am like that. I'm not really interested in listening to 3 seconds of a band and deciding that's what I don't like it or I do like it or whatever. I like buying it, and some of my favorite albums are albums that I didn't really like to start with, and you just, because you've got the physical thing, you listen to them and you start appreciating them more, and before you know it, you know, stuff, people these days would never get into that sort of stuff because they don't have the attention span to sort of really appreciate what goes into it.
Yeah, I used to do that, going to CD stores and music stores and just buy metal albums just because of the artwork. And like you said, sometimes I'd put it in the first couple of tracks. I'd be like, what is this? And then by the 10th time I played it through, I'm like, man, I dig this. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just got to go back and play it a few times before it clicks, and you're like, I actually get this now.
Especially if it's something a bit new. Yeah. And I think if you really have to, there is something about investing. You have to invest part of yourself into the music as well, I think, to really get the most out of it. And I mean, there's stuff that, you know, the production might have been weird or something like that, and then you sort of get used to it. It's like, well, there's nothing sounds like that, and still to this day, you know, there's a lot of albums that nothing sounds like that. And when you listen to it, it's like, yeah, that's, I'm really glad I gave that a chance.
Exactly. And back then it was, that was the Google for us. We'd open up the book and we'd read it and get to the thank you notes on the last page or whatever and go, that band's on here. I've got to go check that out. Right. And things like that as well.
Yeah. I mean, Anthrax and all that, they used to write with all the bands that they toured with. It's like, yep, got to buy that, got to get that. And found a lot of great underground sort of thrash bands that way. And then you sort of expand out and there's just, it was really a pretty amazing time. And then everything sort of fell off, you know, at the edge of the world sort of thing. But, you know, it's people sort of complain, say there's nothing like that anymore. It's not the same. It's like, that's exactly the same as what you had to do back then. You have to make the effort to find these bands, and they're out there. There's loads of bands in all sorts of different genres. And if you liked something back in the day, you're going to find something new that you're going to like as well if you make the effort. So
I totally concur. I'm going to leave it right on that note there, Jason. This has been an absolute pleasure talking about Ilium, the latest EP Quantum Evolution event, which comes out 14th of January. You can chuck in some pre-orders over at iliumaustralia.bandcamp.com. You can also go grab all their music. It's all there, and some merch as well. Jason, thank you very much, my friend. Do you have any last words, shout outs, or thank yous you'd like to add in there, mate?
I guess I just like to say thanks to everyone who still supports music, and support bands in general. I mean, obviously go and buy Ilium stuff, but just in general, try and be open-minded about things, and just basically look after each other. We're a community. There's a lot of variation and stuff. You know, you might like some things and not like other things, but I think we all need to sort of support each other and keep metal alive.
Awesome. Thank you very much, my friend. You have a lovely night.
Thank you. Yep, you too.